Hello. So a couple weeks ago, the developers of Path of Exile, Grinding Gear Games, reached out and offered to fly me to Los Angeles and do a console playtest of Path of Exile 2, which I was not going to turn down, so I did that last week. Me and Flutten took her along with me, and we tried out Path of Exile 2 on the console. I was very surprised they reached out because I've never mentioned PoE. I don't do anything with ARPGs at all. I've actually never really played ARPGs, ever. Last year, I tried Diablo 1 for our friend Joe Fudge. He has this series called Snail Blazers. So me, Sput, and Flutten competed to see how far we could get in 2 hours, blindly going into Diablo 1 for the first time.
Jimmy, getting gossip from the townsfolk. I'm not sure if this is going to play much into his strategy here, but for anyone who put points on Jimmy today, I think we're mostly going to see Jimmy just enjoy himself.
So I played 2 hours of Diablo 1. If you count V Rising as an ARPG, I played that, but I mostly just built a castle. I built a lot of stuff. I didn't get really far in the game. It was very cool of them to invite me out. I'm glad I did it. They didn't require me to make this video or anything. I could have went completely radio silent on them afterwards and it wouldn't have mattered. I'm just making this because I thought it was a really cool experience, and the game was really interesting, and there's a lot of thoughts I have about it, so I just wanted to talk about it. Having never played PoE and not knowing what to expect, I was kind of up in the air about trying the first one before I went, but I decided against that so that I could go in completely blind, zero experience with the game or any of its mechanics. I didn't want to know what changed, what was different, and that's exactly what I did. I made sure to go in with the true new player experience. I got to meet with game director Jonathan Rogers, very good guy. We sat down for about 20 minutes for an interview after the whole event was done, and I got to basically pelt him with as many questions as I could. Their fan base is diehard at this point. When those players are voicing their opinions, it can get very loud. Casual players don't really care to voice their opinions, so I made sure that I was thinking very surface level about stuff. I hope I was able to provide some perspectives, but we'll go into it. When we first walked into the event, there were a bunch of couches set up for 2 players each for the TV and PS5s, but they had like a little presentation first, so we all gathered in the front while the game devs were showcasing just general gameplay up front. It was my first time seeing the game. It looked a little overwhelming because I think they were doing some like mid-game bosses. It looked really cool, but I mean, trying to understand any video games, mid-game or end-game, having never seen even early game is I mean, it's pointless. So a lot of the stuff they were talking about at the beginning went right over my head. I was just kind of waiting until I could get to the couch and start playing. So me and Flutten picked a couch. We sat down in front of a TV with a PS5 with the game, and we started our playthrough. And that's what you're seeing on screen, by the way. So it's us playing the video game. Nowadays, whenever I'm playing a new RPG, I tend to just create Gary Gilbert in some kind of way, and Gary will not be playing Path of Exile 2 because there is no character creation, because the characters that you play are tied directly to your classes. If I pick Warrior and the guy next to me picks Warrior, we look identical, and we don't get to change anything about ourselves except for the stuff we're wearing. I'm new to ARPGs. I'm not new to RPGs. I've played a lot of those, and most recently, I've played Baldur's Gate 3, Dragon's Dogma 2, Skyrim with a mod pack. It's got like 2,000 mods, all of which have incredible character creation, and I was just very excited to go in and do that again. Character creation in RPGs almost feel essential, at least for me when I'm playing them, whether you're, making yourself for this character you want to become. It just creates this sense of self and true immersion into the world. The role-playing part, which is the RP in RPG, is a little separated suddenly. You're embodying a character that a lot of other people are also embodying. I'll go into it later. I brought this up to Jonathan Rogers himself, and his answer was very interesting, so we'll loop back. Let's talk about the game interface. There's a few obstacles here when critiquing the interface and talking about what I like and dislike, because the big factor here is that we're playing on console, and navigating any UI on console is just infinitely harder than taking your mouse and moving it around and clicking shit. Interfaces on console are just notoriously terrible. It's hard to make a good console interface that's accessible and smooth to move around. I'm trying to keep that in mind. A lot of this stuff probably wouldn't be as jarring. I think it played a big role in some of the confusion I had. I was hitting the wrong buttons a lot. You can remap any button on the controller, so if you're stuck playing on a controller, you can basically make it as comfortable as you'd like. You have to open interfaces a lot. You are interacting with the UI and all the different windows a lot, and you have to know what each window does and where to go and how to navigate them a lot. And having to do that with a controller kind of sucked. Another thing I'm keeping in mind is that this is couch co-op, and there are a few differences. I don't know specifics, but I do know that players that went in with a solo experience, visually, there are a few differences. But let's also talk about that, the couch co-op aspect of the game. I loved it. I can't tell you the last time I'd played a console game on the couch next to somebody where both of our characters are on screen at all times. That wasn't a sports game. Playing an action RPG in this sort of way was a completely new video game experience for me, which was awesome. I guess maybe back in the day playing like old arcade games was the last time anything like that happened. It's just kind of a nostalgic experience by itself, sitting next to somebody and playing a game with them. I don't do that often. That in mind, playing the game through couch co-op, I think, did interfere with the new player experience a little bit. The UI is not what I'd experience if I went in solo. You can see both of your health bars, stamina, all that. You can both pull up your inventory at any time. There were a few like clunky mechanics with questing where one of us would have to talk to the person who assigned the quest, turn it in, get the reward, and then the other player would have to do the exact same thing. There's got to be a way to implement it so that you both finish the quest that you're both on if someone turns it in. That's probably just a unique couch co-op problem. Flutten's a lot better at absorbing information and getting very good at a game very quickly. And then there's my dumbass who needs to like read all the tool tips and understand where I'm putting things and just hoping I don't mess it up, which I did. I messed things up a lot. So she's kind of just sitting there twiddling her thumbs while I try and figure out my abilities and why I've suddenly unassigned all of them and can't attack anymore. But overall, the two players on screen, it was still a very fun time. It felt smooth. We never lost track of where our character was. If one character is like running in the corner and you're standing still, it'll basically just drag you along. So you're always going to be there. They have a decent setup. I think people are going to really like couch co-op. So I guess pretty early on into this review, I'm going to go into my biggest critique about the entire game, and that's weapons. As a brand new player, very inexperienced with ARPGs, weapons are a disaster. Even after playing it for 6 hours and talking to veterans of the game and talking to the game director himself, I still cannot confidently tell you how the abilities and weapons coordinate together, because they do. And it absolutely fucked my gaming experience sometimes. Let me lay this out for you. I picked Warrior. I started out with a shield and a club, and on my back was a two-hand weapon. And as I go and pick up a one-handed weapon that would, in theory, replace my shitty club that I started with, I would be greeted with an error message saying that because I have certain abilities equipped, I could not hold this weapon I just got. My character has completely lost their ability to take their hand and close it around a handle. Somehow wiped their memory clean of how to fucking hold something. I can't tell you how unsatisfying it is to get something that would upgrade your character and not be able to hold it for the dumbest reason imaginable. I'm trying to learn this ability system. Apparently it's different from the first game, so even veteran players were figuring it out. I'm learning everything from scratch, including this ability gem slotting system. So I get this error message and I'm trying to reconfigure my shit so I can somehow hold this weapon I got, and I can't figure it out. And I've got Flutten next to me, like, just waiting, because she has a bow. She could just hold bows. She's fine. She doesn't have to reconfigure shit. Me, on the other hand, this club is a problem. There's some sort of justification for this system, because in PoE 1, players could hold every weapon, and then they would be confused because their abilities would go away. Certain weapons have specific abilities. You know, I get that part. But I feel like the solution is amazingly simple. If you're holding a weapon and you're curious as to why you can no longer use an ability you were just using, put a tooltip on the faded out ability that says requires club. Now, why can't you do that? That would answer so many questions. That's a very important missing part of the system. At least let me hold the weapon and see what still remains and what I need to do to reconfigure things. It's very messy. If I kill a boss and it drops a weapon, I want to swing that shit around for a little bit. Even if I can't use my abilities, I want to, you know, play the game. I want to swing it around, see what it looks like, see if it hits good. I don't want to rethink my whole build every time a weapon drops, especially if I know I can hold it. The whole game is hitting things with weapons. Just let me hold them. Let me put them in my hand. Yeah. I'm very passionate about this. Any character should be able to hold any weapon. If they use a system kind of like how Baldur's Gate 3 does, where you have proficiency in weapons, like obviously warriors are gonna have proficiency in swords and flails and clubs. If you wield those, they'll give you abilities alongside them or something. But if you're a ranger and you are holding a two-handed sword, you're not gonna get any of the abilities that would come from it, and that main swing ability is going to have like a debuff, and it's not going to hit very hard because you're a ranger. That's not your thing. The system they have right now is wonky at best. Maybe it's a skill issue. All of this could just be a skill issue on my part. I had to get that off my chest before I go into other things, because it's important. This is an important matter that I promise new players are gonna fucking just go cross-eyed about. Let's go into the next thing. Exploration. Path of Exile 2 is very weird when it comes to exploring things. Your map is given this fog of war effect, and it kind of unfades on your map as you walk into it. So as you're wandering around, going through mobs, completing quest objectives, you are slowly revealing this entire area until you can, you know, see the whole thing. But then when you return to the main hub and get a new quest and get sent back to Clearfell, you've got the fog of war again. All of that exploration you just did is gone. It's as if you were never there. All the mobs are back, and the area was regenerated. Things aren't exactly where they were a second ago. It has somehow magically moved everything around, and you've got to go re-find certain things. And I feel very conflicted about it, because on one hand, you're constantly exploring. It's never the same place if you re-enter. You know, you've always got a mystery around the corner, kind of. Because on the other hand, it doesn't necessarily mean you're exploring and discovering again. It just means that you no longer have the exact location of that thing you need to go get now, and you have to go re-find it. This might be a reach and sound dramatic, but in a way, it almost feels anti-exploration. You're completely ripped of your discoveries. There's nothing to show that, you know, you've been there and done that. But there are cool things in these randomly generated areas for you to stumble upon and discover. I think we found, it was like a mud boss or something. We stumbled upon this mud burrow. We came across, and it was a place we were able to go inside, and we were like, we gotta go inside. We went through like these weird tunnels, these creepy little tunnels, and we fought a boss at the end, which is what we expected to do, and that's what we did. We beat this boss, which was cool. It was cool that existed. It was nice being able to come across something we didn't know was there. Granted, that's a very standard expectation for an RPG. You absolutely should be stumbling on caves and random shit that is optional. I'd say that's a pretty hard requirement for RPGs. I don't think we got very far in the game because we were, you know, obviously learning as we go. Some of the things I'm gonna say maybe are completely debunked by players who got farther than us. Having said that, I think if instances of randomly generated areas have a chance to spawn these unique, discoverable, stumble upon areas and dungeons, that would justify the whole fog of war concept. If I'm able to run around until I find something that wasn't there the last time I explored it, that's cool. I like that. But if it's just like the same mobs, the same mini bosses, just like slightly moved, and you've got to, you know, go search for them again, it didn't feel correct. I'm sure it's just a unique aspect of this game that players that are familiar with Path of Exile are going to already expect, because I'm guessing this is how it works in the first game too. So story. Normally, as the story guy, I'd go into this much more in other scenarios here, but honestly, being physically there at the event and having so much going on around us, I mean, we weren't really even hearing the game much. We didn't have our headphones on most of the time because we were just talking to people randomly. I was doing my best to comprehend the very basics and experience as much of the actual mechanics of the game as possible. So I absorbed absolutely zero lore. The only thing I could tell you about the entire game, the story, the lore, anything. 2 of the classes that we did not pick, those guys are dead. And the other thing I can tell you is that we, the 2 characters we did pick, can swim with handcuffs on. That's about it. Combat. This is the most important section for reasons I don't need to tell you about. I've basically turned playing as a human sword and shield guy into a bit at this point, but there's a legitimate reason that I did choose a warrior going into this, and it's a decision that actually originates from Skyrim. I'm sure most of you have heard of the sneak archer and the memed class of Skyrim, basically crouching and skipping entire encounters with NPCs, just kind of coasting through dungeons because the NPCs are dead before they even see you. If you're playing a different class, especially a melee class, you're not skipping those mobs. You have to face them head on. Granted, I don't think in a game like Path of Exile, you're gonna be able to like cheese your way through shit like that. Like there's not gonna be like a sneak archer thing, but I know for a fact that close quarter encounters with mobs are required suddenly because I don't have a way to attack them from range. I can't kite anything. I can't use an AoE from a distance and freeze them. I'm not spawning 40 skeletons to go do the dirty work for me like a little bitch. I have to learn each NPC's mechanics the entire game. I have to face things head on, close quarters. I get to experience every single mechanic that the devs programmed into each NPC. I missed nothing. I had to learn survivability to an extent, how to not take as much damage for every mob encounter, and it made me pay attention to what my abilities really do and how to use them effectively so I don't die a lot, which I did. I died a lot because of this entire mindset I have going here. Flutten loved reviving me after she got done kiting 20 monsters. But the combat, from the basic attacks to all the abilities, felt very smooth and it was fun. That's the biggest part of this. It felt good and it was fun. Every time I hit a guy, it was nice. I liked hitting things in the game, which is the most important part. It's 95% of this game is hitting shit, and it felt great. I guess the dodge roll mechanic is new, and if it is, that's awesome. It felt great, felt satisfying getting out of the way of big boss attacks. It brought like a Souls-like aspect into an ARPG, which is really cool. I have to give Path of Exile 2 extreme praise for something they decided to do. Not do, rather. Path of Exile 2 does not do level scaling, as far as I know. I have an entire video essay draft about why level scaling is probably the worst thing to ever happen to RPGs. Ever. Other than fucking pre-order bonuses. But we're not talking about those. I hate level scaling, dude. I've never played a game with level scaling that I truly enjoyed. As we leveled up and started putting points into our skill tree and using new abilities, and we're going back through the forest areas from the beginning and refighting these respawned mini bosses, they're going down significantly faster. Different story entirely from an hour ago. You can feel how much stronger your character is, which is insanely important. If somehow they are doing level scaling, and I'm being ignorant here and wrong, very wrong, which is possible, they're doing level scaling correctly because I can still feel it. I don't think they are, though. Next section is progression, mostly talking about the abilities and the skill tree. And I'm once again going to blame console here because assigning things and upgrading abilities It just felt very unnatural to try and navigate it. You get abilities and upgrade abilities when you get these like little stones or whatever, they're like gems. I don't really know how it works exactly. I basically just clicked on them when I got them and assigned them into whatever sounded cool or wherever it would let me put them, really. Slotting gems into sockets is a very traditional RPG thing. I mean, I felt my character getting stronger, so that's all that really matters. A lot of PoE players would scare new players because they would show them this skill tree that, when you zoom out, resembles the Milky Way galaxy. Without context, that will absolutely turn players away, which I'm sure it did hundreds of times. But I think in PoE 2, it is smaller. But to be honest with you, when I was going through the skill tree, I didn't even know you could zoom out and see the rest of it, and I never did. So it's just zoomed in to where you need to be when you're picking your new abilities. So, I mean, I was never lost there. There was only like 2 routes I could really go. It wasn't really a problem for me to, figure the skill tree out. Obviously, in a game like this, you're gonna have players stressing over whether they picked the right ones or not. I'm not sure how like respecking goes. I never tried to do that. I'm not sure if it's easy or not to respec your skill tree, or if you can at all even. I would hope that a game with a skill tree, you can kind of just go with what sounds cooler, what you might feel you need at the time, and still find yourself enjoying the game and progressing as usual. I don't know how easy it is to screw up your skill tree. It's a skill tree, you know how they work. So again, the real only complaint that I have about progression has to do with the ability weapon correlation. None of my abilities, when hovering over them, said must have club equipped. That would be huge. Not being able to hold weapons, I think, is the worst part about the entire game. While we're on the subject of gear progression, another little critique I have is the amount of loot that is dropped is a lot. There's so much loot, dude. We'd kill a group of mobs or, a boss room, pick everything up, and we would need to teleport back to the hub, sell everything, and then teleport back. Which is nice that you're able to do that. But I hate not picking loot up. I want to go sell things, so I would really like loot to be just more meaningful, less often and more meaningful. I think I would rather, than them throw 10 common drops, don't even have that at all, and have 1 uncommon drop. It doesn't have to be like rares every time or anything, just, something that's slightly worthwhile to look at, at least to pick up and sell. I'm picking loot up. I'm not leaving it on the ground. The old school Iron Man inside of me does not let me leave loot on the ground, so I'm gonna pick it up and sell it. So looping back into the interview with Jonathan Rogers, the game director of Path of Exile 2, as a new player, I was very interested in his perspective of trying to gain new players. I asked him what he wants for new players. What does he want new players to come in and experience? And to that, he basically said he wants them to experience it through to the end game and the end game and beyond. I would hope any game developer would like you to go all the way through the game and play it in its entirety. With a game like PoE, where a lot of the creativity and different possibilities comes in the end game, whether it's from builds or creating maps. I don't know if you could, I think people create custom maps. That's where he wants new players to get to. Immediately when he said he wants them to get to endgame, I had to bring up the fact that we just tried WoW, and the big stereotype with WoW is get to the end game and then you can start playing. And I wanted to know if there was any similarities there, because that's not really my cup of tea. He was basically saying he's going to aim to give a new experience to leveling through the campaign every single time. He was talking about basically switching up the campaign maps. He said each league is going to have a different setup of the map, so you're not going to be experiencing the exact same thing. I think he said Act 1, which is what we were doing, is going to be fairly similar. It just might be a different generated map with the areas being out of order. I don't know. It's not going to be identical to your journey from before. He did say he was against the whole skip campaign, like pay to skip campaign option, which was really refreshing to hear coming from him. I mean, I talked about WoW and how prevalent it was. The devs shoving it in your face that they hate that you're not in the end game. They despise that you're not max level yet. And I think there is a huge part of the end game in PoE, but he doesn't want to make that the focus. He knows that the leveling journey is the game still. It's not going to be this neglected thing that you should rush to get through, which I think is a super important thing to acknowledge. I don't know what the max level is in PoE 2, but I remember playing, I think we got to like, I want to say like level like 10, maybe we got to 10 or 11, and there were people that got to level 25. Like 6 hours we got to 11. Granted, we're new, but level 25? Like we looked over and saw people in areas like they were on a different planet than us or something. Like it was a whole different environment, different color scheme, everything. They were playing a different game than us. It has a player base that is very used to just go, finish, get done with this. Let's get to the end. Let's be done here. No leveling. We want to be max level. You don't want to encourage that for new players. It's not very appealing. He said that he wants them to experience the game, enjoy the leveling experience, and then when they get to the end, hope that it has built enough interest to start experimenting and get creative with different builds, trying out different things. I'm not sure all the creative avenues that the end game has, but from what it sounds like, that players really do occupy themselves there. So I'm only assuming that it's going to be a similar situation here where, you know, the diehard players are going to find plenty to do at the end of this. I also asked, since PoE 2 is PoE 2, if new players should go take a peek at PoE 1. Because, you know, it is the sequel. Whenever I see that there's two games, you know, I always ask, well, should I play the first one? He basically said, definitely try the sequel first if you're new to the PoE world. He's very aware that PoE can be very intimidating to new players, a lot of overwhelming aspects. Basically said that they've done a lot to hopefully get rid of that overwhelming feeling that new players expressed through the first game. I didn't feel very overwhelmed. I mean, I didn't feel like there was too much going on at any point. I think I was a little like lost at a few moments with the whole like abilities and managing those at one point, but I wasn't like overwhelmed or, you know, there's too much going on all the time. I think they did a good job. I can't compare it to the first one, but I think they nailed it. And the other thing I want to come back to, I talked to him about character creation, because it was my, you know, first disappointment, I guess you could say, with the game. I was like, oh, you know, I saw the character, I was excited to make my own, and turns out you can't. And he had a very interesting perspective on the whole thing that, you know, you don't really think about unless you're a game dev. The first thing he starts out with is character creations are high budget. I mean, it ain't cheap to fly all of us there and pay for our hotels either. So we won't talk about it. For games that do have character creation, they actually use the character creation system to make the rest of the NPCs in the game. So all of the NPCs you're talking to and interacting with have all been developed through the character creation system that the player will be experiencing. It's a two birds with one stone thing in terms of development. And he was basically saying, like, we don't have a lot of humanoids in the game. Like, there's not enough to justify creating this whole system for them, which I understand. And he did come with the approach that I was expecting as well. You know, once you create your character and you put armor on, you know, it just becomes completely irrelevant. You never see your character again. He did acknowledge the fact that, you know, players do enjoy that process in making the character they want to make. I mean, it's an RPG. I felt like I couldn't really ask about the story because I couldn't really dive into it myself, but if I could ask now, I would ask how important the story and the campaign is, because if you want a player to feel truly immersed and appreciate this world that you're building, you know, world building is incredibly important in RPGs. Being able to create a sense of self, it just creates something that it links you with the world. It does that for every game that includes character creation. It's just a sprinkle of something special that you get to carry with you throughout your whole playthrough. Even if you're wearing a helmet and you never see what your character's fucking face looks like again, you know that it's you there. And without that, it just feels like there's something missing. That's on a deeper level, but if you want to pull back, I mean, there's character creation in NHL and Madden. You can create your guy there and, you know, tweak all these little details about your guy that you'll never fucking think about again once you start playing because you've got your helmet and your gear on. None of it matters, but it doesn't stop me from spending an hour each time I create a new, you know, sports guy. It's one of my favorite parts. I think character creation would benefit this game a lot. I think it creates a big opportunity for new players to find interest in the game. It's a very attractive thing to have. It sounds dramatic, but I really do think that it would have enhanced the entire gameplay experience if I had created the dude I was running around as. It just does something for me. Other than that, I mean, it was a fantastic experience. I can't thank them enough for flying me and Flutten out and, you know, letting us play this game early. I think they did a really good job of creating an avenue for new players to come in and test it out. It's going to be like a free-to-play system the same way they have PoE 1 set up. I don't think they have any pay-to-win shit either. That's really awesome. It also gave me a really cool controller. Came with a nice little Xbox case. Whoa, I didn't even see this yet. Whoa, what? This is my first time holding it, and it's so much cooler than I thought it was. It's got like buttons on the back. Like, you know, there's like weird fucking MOBA mouses that have extra buttons on the side. This is like that, but for an Xbox controller. That's so cool, dude. What does that do? I don't know what this is. Anyway, it's a Path of Exile controller. I don't know if you can see it, but that's fucking awesome, dude. This was a really cool little parting gift. It's gonna be free when it comes out, so I mean, I'm assuming a few of you guys will try it. I know a lot of people are just really heavily anticipating this. I'm really glad I got to experience it and try it out and give some feedback directly to the devs. I don't know how many more times I'll ever get to do something like that. Tell the guy directly what I think. You know, I'm not tweeting at him. He's in front of me. That's so cool. Thank you guys for having me out there. If any of you ever watch this, and I'm gonna be sure to be playing this game when it comes out. I'm gonna give it another shot and dive in and maybe pay attention to the story and hear the audio of the game more. That's all I got on it. So, all right, I'll see you later.